Welcome to Prescribing Lifestyle, the podcast that's all about empowering you to live your healthiest, happiest life. I'm your host, Dr. Avi Charlton, and each week we'll dive into the latest research, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you optimize your well-being. From nutrition and fitness to mental health and mindfulness, we'll explore every aspect of lifestyle medicine, giving you the tools you need to make informed decisions and take control of your health. Whether you're looking into preventing disease, managing chronic conditions, or simply elevate your quality of life, Prescribing Lifestyle is here to guide you on your journey to wellness. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to embark on this transformative adventure towards a healthier, happier you. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Prescribing Lifestyle Podcast. I have invited another guest. This is Dan Russell. He has been an amazing individual, and I met him at the Speakers Institute in the boot camp a couple of weeks ago. He has been inspiring me about his positive mindset. He's got a story to tell, and he's got lots more story about his personal journey. So I'm going to introduce him as a leading up and coming young business leader in the construction industry right here in Melbourne. He comes from a small town called Okika. I hope that I pronounced it right. With a small population of just 4,000 people in the South Island of New Zealand. And he was a professional sportsman, and he's got a story to tell about an injury and a life-threatening situation. But he came to Melbourne just 2 years ago and started as a project manager and quickly rose to a role of general manager in a company called Base Industry in the construction industry. So he's managing quite a few staffs from 40 to 160 employees in Victoria and expanding massively. And he didn't have a university degree. He began his journey in construction as a labourer and worked his way up, leading to one of the largest scaffolding company in Victoria. So welcome, Dan. Thank you for coming on to my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Avi. Really excited to be here.
Thank you. I will let you introduce yourself and introduce yourself and tell us what you're about.
Crown. But yeah, look, I'm just obviously our relationship, our meeting the other day at the Speakers Institute, which is such a good course that we did, and then but yeah, from that opportunity, I've been in Victoria 2 years. In the construction, being in the mining industry, and coming to Melbourne, and now I've been lucky enough to lead in that space as a general manager, and absolutely, being disruptive to the industry as a young generation up and coming leader does, and changing the game. So excited to be on your podcast.
Great, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
He's very young. He's only 35. To me, that's quite young. Anyone younger than me is young. And he's worked his way up, and he's have a life-threatening story as well. Tell us about your life-threatening story.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I feel like everyone has a story, right? And I'm sure the listeners all, in some point in your time, whether it's when you're a teenager, through primary school, even trauma, through your tweens, I'm sure we have a lot of traumatic experiences in our tweens and in our 30s as well. I was unfortunate, but fortunate enough to have this experience that's changed my life forever. I used to play rugby at a very high level, borderline on the professional scene, representing Queensland and Canterbury. And at the time, I was playing rugby in Queensland, and I was in a tackle. And what happened was the tackle gave me a hematoma. So what a hematoma is bruising of the muscle. So what happens is it's from an intensive impact to the muscle area, and then that causes bruising. What happened with myself was I ended up getting a hematoma from the impact, but because of the sheer impact from the tackle, it actually tore open. What
Wow,
that's
this is in
called
the
is
calf area, is that right? In the
this is
calf
in the
area?
quadricep.
In the
This is in the
quads.
quadricep, Davey. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the quad. Oh, excuse me, that's my alarm clock. But what happened was when that impact happened, I let that finish.
That's okay. We'll let an alarm clock finish.
The old grandfather clock. So
Okay.
I took on this hit, and at the time I didn't notice much, except I had a very sore leg.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was I'd actually tore open the internal part of my quadriceps. So what had basically once tore open the muscle compartment, then the
Yeah.
blood started filling up in that leg cavity,
Wow.
which at the time I didn't know. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing rugby, and then I felt my legs starting to swell up. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I then went off
Yeah.
off the pitch and noticed my legs swelling
Mm-hmm.
quite rapidly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The trainer at the time was like, "Hey, mate, something's terribly wrong with your
Mm-hmm.
leg."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm not. It's not looking too good." And then they suggested I go to hospital and get it checked out.
Mm-hmm.
Got it looked when I went to the hospital. As soon as I got there, that they were in full panic mode. For me, I felt like I just had a bit of a cork in the leg, but I started noticing losing feeling in my foot, and I knew something was starting to become terribly wrong. And then I started getting these sharp shooting pains from my leg, and what that was the muscle actually compressing on my nerve
Mm-hmm.
and closing off the nerve from my hip down to my leg. So that was that sharp shooting pain was the pulse trying to get sent through down my leg through my nerve,
Yeah.
sciatic
Yeah.
nerve down to my leg,
Yeah.
which was actually quite painful. Funny enough, it
Mm-hmm.
was. You wouldn't think your nerves would cause a problem with the pulsating, but it was actually I actually was in a little bit of pain from that. From there, I was getting painted in iodine, and they were telling me that I needed to go into surgery ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
And from that time, maybe I was 27 years old. I was in a great position in my life, fitness wise. I was playing great rugby,
Yeah.
and I was feeling really good about myself at the time. And I was playing really good rugby to get a contract as well. I was pushing on to try and get a contract late in my career, but I
Yeah.
was on the verge of getting into that next space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this all happened. Now, obviously, at the time, I wasn't really thinking much. This is just a small injury,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
bit of a bang to the leg,
Yeah.
nothing catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all happened to me in this moment. I had this hospital manager come up to me with some documentation,
Mm-hmm.
and the hospital manager's talking to me about getting put put to sleep and to sign the waiver. The second sheet was to sign to take on the bill, but luckily I had private health, so
Oh, good.
that was all right. But Medibank, thank you, you looked after me.
Yep.
If you don't have private health, probably get onto it. It helped me out a lot, saved me. And then, which at the time they even told me that the rough estimate was and it's around $20,000. That's a lot of
Oh my
money.
God.
To
Yeah.
and I'm going, well, what are you guys doing? Like I still hadn't even found out what was happening to me. There was such a rush.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were saying they were going to explain. And then the third sheet that I had to sign to give consent to was to have my right leg amputated. So I thought it was a joke at the beginning because I'm laying there and I didn't think anything much of it. I'm was like, oh, I don't feel much pain. I just seen this. I've got this massive balloon of a leg. Thought it must be just a bit of swelling,
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I'm not going to sign to have my right leg removed. Or give consent to it anyway. And basically, that's when they told me. They said, Dan, you've got acute compartment syndrome. You're a ticking time bomb. What's happened is your blood is pooling in your leg cavity, which is at any stage, the blood's going to get poisoned and then go back into your bloodstream, which will then effectively shut your kidneys down.
God.
So blood poisoning, right? Or contaminated blood.
Yeah.
So as soon as they said, Dan, you're a ticking time bomb, and they told me all that, I just had a moment for myself. 27 years old, I was in my prime, and it was like an instant change in my whole life right then and in that moment, because I didn't know, like, is this the end of my life?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to wake up.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my right leg removed. If I do wake up, I'm going to have no leg. And where's that going to take me on the rest of my life?
Of course, must be terrifying.
Absolutely, Avi. Like you have those moments where you just stop and you just have that little bit of time to think. And it might have been a minute, because then I got put to sleep. That minute felt like an hour. I just, in that thought process of what was going on, and I just had the self-belief though that I was going to be okay.
Did you sign it?
So I didn't ever get down to a point where I was like, I'm going to die here. I never thought that. I always, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay through this. And I was always in that mindset of just always making sure that I was strong in my mind and my thought process. And I truly believed that too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just trying to tell myself or trick myself. I actually truly believed that I was going to be okay.
That's amazing, positive mindset.
So fast forward.
Great. Yeah. Fast forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so fast forward, waking up, woke up, and first thing I had to do, I actually had the surgeon sitting beside me, in the waiting chair, holding my hand. And when I woke, he was there, and his name's Dr. David Hayes. Okay. Great surgeon, from Brisbane Private. And he said, Dan, I just wanted to let you know that the stars aligned tonight, my friend, and I'll see you tomorrow. Great. And so he left, and the nurse came over and said, Dan, I've been working with Dr. H for a long time, and he's never ever waited with a patient. So in that moment, I sat there in my cell, and I was like, wow, this was very serious. Like, I'm so grateful just to be alive. So at that point, I didn't care if I had a leg or I didn't have a leg. I was just grateful to be alive. Wow. And then lifting up the sheets to check if there was a leg. And fortunately, I still had my leg, which was amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I couldn't feel it though, because I had a nerve block in my hip, so I didn't know if I had one or not. Until I had to double check and say, does that look like my toe? And then I was like, no, that's my leg. It's still there.
So thankful you saw your toe and leg.
Yeah. It was a relief, right? Seeing your foot, sometimes it's not the best thing to look at, but I was pleased to see my foot that time.
Yep. Wow.
And then from that, Avi, like, I remember laying there, and I was like, you know what? Okay, this has happened. Not time to reevaluate what's happening in my life. And I truly believe that in those moments, like I said before, we have these moments for us to reflect. Sometimes I feel like the universe puts us in these positions, not always the best, and it's really hard to find a positive outcome out of it. Yeah. But sometimes I think it's like, hey, we live our life too fast sometimes, and we don't stop and take a breath, and we don't stop and look at what we're grateful for, and what we should be proud of within ourselves or with people around us or in our life, right? Yeah. And I think we're always pushing. So for myself, I was in a great position in my mind, in my physical self, and even in my spirit. So then, from that point, it was rehabilitation time. Now, this was probably the biggest shock to me that I've ever had, and the biggest challenge, the biggest mountain I had to climb.
Oh, wow.
I,
Yeah.
Getting told, so the surgeon's saying, look, Dan, we're gonna get you fixed up. We're gonna skin graft your leg. Which, I opted not to. I asked them to staple back my leg, staple back the scar, sorry, because they had to open it up and leave it open for a couple of days. They ended up putting it back and stapling it together. Once the swelling had gone down, and then they said, right, from now on, moving forward, you're never going to be able to play a contact sport again because of the danger of your leg and the weakness of your thigh.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And, as we all do, I guess we always believe in what our experts tell us, right? Now, Amy, you're a doctor, and I'm sure I love listening and watching your Instagram pages of what you talk about. Because you don't just talk about the medical side, you talk about the spirit side, or the embodied of ourselves, the part of us. So it's two parts. You've got this medical, and then you've got us, what we believe in ourselves and what we feel.
Yeah.
And so the same thing, I'm getting this information from a doctor, and I'm listening, I'm actively listening and taking it on. But deep down, I'm like, I'm going to play rugby, or I'm going to keep playing sport. And the comments was, Dan, you're not going to be able to walk for 6 months properly. You're going to be in crutches in a wheelchair. Dan, you're not going to be able to run for another year and a half to 2 years. Dan, you're not going to be able to go to the gym and do squats or any heavy leg activity.
Yeah.
Dan, you're not going to be able to play rugby or any contact sport ever again.
My God.
When someone tells me,
that would have been devastating for a 27-year-old, and you're training to be a professional rugby player.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, and the thing is, yes, 100%. I think people would have sat there and people might go, you know what, wow, that's me. And they sit in that.
I'm done.
For me, it's more of like the challenge, like and again, it's the challenge. It's not so much I don't believe what the doctor says. I trust the doctor. He's a well-established, he's a very educated person. He studied this in his field. He knows what's happening.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that. And I knew within myself that I can do this within limitations, right? I didn't mean like I'm going to go and walk tomorrow and be able to run again. It took hard work and dedication, and that comes later in the story. But at that time, I was like, no, I'm gonna really prove him wrong and prove to myself.
Okay, great.
So coming out of that, and I think I even said to him, I said, oh, look, you can tell me everything you want, but I'm gonna really push for this myself.
Okay.
And then I didn't even go and get rehab from a professional. I just went to myself and I was like, right, what's the most functional training that I need to do to get myself back the best way? Now, obviously I can't walk. I'm on crutches. So what's going to be low impact that I'm going to be able to do? And that was to be in a pool, no weight on the leg, actively swimming and holding myself up and floating. So every day, AV, by 6 o'clock in the morning, I was up in the pool and aqua jogging, floating in the water, getting the leg moving, just getting that blood, and just, and this every day religiously, getting a habitual, habit going, getting into a habitual routine of just doing the same movement and just building on that. Wow. And then once I started getting movement, then I'd go into the pool and then I'd start doing, I'd push off nicely off my leg. And then just was working it every day. To the point, then I'm in the gym and then I'm starting with just the bar and then just going through the workout, just down on the bar on a Smith machine and then standing back up and just doing that day in, day out, just religiously going through that motion of just working on the leg. 6 months, AV, I was back lifting 100 kilos on the squat rack. I'm running, I'm jogging. 6 months later, 12 months later, I'm playing rugby again. I'm lifting 200 kilos, squatting 200 kilos.
Okay.
I put on, a significant amount of leg muscle back to my leg.
Yeah.
If I showed you today my leg comparison, you wouldn't even know the difference.
Yeah.
Where the scar, all you see is the scar, and my
Yeah.
legs are about the same size. And I
Okay,
just,
great.
I was just so determined to get to back to where I needed to be.
Okay. Amazing. That's an amazing journey, amazing mindset. Do you know where you got this mindset from, or you just woke up and you've got to do it?
Great question. I've always been such a driven person, and I truly, the biggest thing, Avi, I believe in myself.
Mm,
And I don't think we believe in ourselves enough in this in
mm,
this
mm.
society.
Yeah.
And I think we have so much self-doubt. And I truly believe that if we back ourselves in every day, I'm not saying that we're ever going to get it right all the time,
Mm, mm-hmm.
but generally 9 times out of 10, you're going to learn something along that way. And just as we were talking off topic before about our journeys where we're going, Avi, like we
Mm,
don't have end goals, right? We know where we want to be,
yeah.
but it's about the journey. It's about the journey and the process getting there and the
Yeah.
learnings from that, and
Absolutely.
taking those and just being in the moment and learning. Just like you and I, when we met at the
Yeah.
Speakers Institute,
Yeah.
we both
Yeah.
met and we both had an idea, but it wasn't where we knew where we wanted to be. It was more
Mm,
about the journey.
yeah.
And I truly believe that for myself is how it's got me so driven in my life. And I bring that into all aspects,
Yeah.
into my work aspect, into my sport, into my
Mm,
lifestyle. And it
mm,
and I live such a great life. I'm always happy. We have our down days, but I'm
yeah.
generally always happy in what I'm doing, because I'm internally happy with myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I have external people or external noise telling me something that doesn't feel right, like you can't do this, Dan,
Mm,
it doesn't sit right with me, because it's a negative comment.
yeah.
But because I believe in myself so much, Avi, someone tells me I can't do it, I'm like, well, all right, then I'm going to prove you wrong.
Mm,
But in saying that, I'm proving myself wrong because I'm proving myself right.
mm-hmm.
Is more the space that I feel better, that I can prove myself right than wrong.
Wow, that is amazing because it's so easy to pity yourself and grieve and curl up into a ball and say, "Oh my God, I can't train rugby. Can't walk," and just grieve for the journey that you've lost. And I think a lot of people would be feeling sad about what's happened just with the tackle, and you managed to get such a big injury, which is life-threatening and even leg-threatening. That is amazing. You can stay positive.
Absolutely, and I've grown from that too, Avi. Like I'm
Yeah.
and like at the beginning of beginning of my story, I was just saying, unfortunately, but fortunately, I
Mm,
learned a lot about myself on that journey. I don't get me wrong,
mhm.
I did wake up with days where I didn't want to get out of bed. I
Yeah.
woke up days where I just wanted to give up.
Mm,
I was days where I felt alone. There was
mhm.
days where I felt weak. There was
Yeah.
days where I wanted to give up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is where it's really important, where we take a breath, stop, reevaluate what we're doing, and believe in ourselves.
Mm,
And it's the mind is so powerful, and the body is so powerful. The mind, the spirit, and the physical body ourselves are amazing, amazing biological creatures that,
mm.
you know, we can do anything. We can
Yeah.
absolutely do anything. And that's what changes us compared to any animal on this planet, in this kingdom, because we
Yeah.
can adapt. We
Yep.
adapt. And that's what makes us the super animal, the super
Mm,
mammal, right? Because we
yeah.
can. And when you realize that, you can do anything.
Mm. Do you often feel like you want to give up and you can't get out of bed, can't go to the pool, and can't do it?
Actually, when I have those days, I let it be.
Okay.
That's your body resetting, I believe, and it's
Yeah.
your body telling you a couple of things.
Yeah.
One, any listener out there that's wanting to take something away from this conversation, like
Mm,
listen to yourself.
Mm.
Truly listen to yourself and believe in yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you believe in yourself and respect yourself, you'll
Mm.
listen,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so when I'm having those days, I listen to it. So it might be telling my body might be going, Dan, you're fatigued. You need to rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rest. Don't overdo it. If your friends are saying, Dan, come out, or Dan, let's catch up, or family, just go, hey guys, I'm just going to rest this week, this
Mm.
weekend.
Okay.
I'm gonna take some
Yeah.
time for myself.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not sleeping right, right, do I need to go get some fresh air? Do I need to go do some exercise? It doesn't have to be strenuous exercise. It's just getting out there and getting the blood flowing in your
Yeah.
body. You can feel active and get that sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and fueling the body too. When we
Mm-hmm.
respect our body and respect ourselves, we fuel our body by giving ourselves enough water. You
Yeah.
know, our body's made up 80% of water.
Yeah.
Massive, right?
Absolutely.
Diet. Look, a diet it just needs to be balanced in my belief. So
Mm-hmm.
eating something that's nutritional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying healthy. I just saying nutritional.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
works for you. That works for you because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different diets out there and so many different foods that you can have
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
nutritional. That works for you. That gets the best for yourself, and then what you feel good about, then it works.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is what all
And
I talk about all the time.
yes, oh, I love, yes, Avi, I love what you talk about, and it aligns with what I believe in myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more, and it does, and that's what it's, how I've got through a lot of these advocacies in my life
Yeah.
that I struggled with growing up, going
Mm-hmm.
through because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe in myself enough. I had self doubt.
Mm.
Now through those adversities, I'm now rising through that, and that's I think it's a reflection of where I'm at now in my leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
35 years old, general manager, in Melbourne, Victoria, on the biggest
Mm-hmm.
projects in Melbourne's history and construction,
Mm-hmm.
and growing a business, being disruptive. But that's just because of my age, people might look at me and go, Dan, how did you get there? Or you
Mm.
must have faked it till you made it,
Yeah.
right? But the way I look at it is I believed in myself.
Yeah.
I had self-belief, and that's when you believe in yourself, you'll get there no matter what,
Yeah.
because you'll subconsciously or consciously find your way how you get there.
Great. Did you find that the injury that you've had has helped you with your professional journey as well, that you grew from a project manager to a general manager?
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. That helped me grow within myself because I had to go back to zero basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd lost a relationship
Mm.
from that because at the time I couldn't do anything, so I was struggling, and I said to the person I was seeing at the time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we have to go our own ways,
Wow.
and that was now my journey that I had to get myself right and
Yeah.
this is where you have to reflect. And I'm not saying if everyone goes through that to
Yeah.
push away. That was
Mm-hmm.
my time to. I wasn't before that. I was doing well with what I thought I was doing for
Mm.
myself.
Yep.
I
Yep.
wasn't listening to myself enough, and I wasn't respecting myself enough.
Mm. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then when I had this incident,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I changed. That's when I reevaluated who I was, and I had
Mm.
some eye-opening moments. Like I said, when you're about to die,
Mm.
you do change your perception. It changes your
Mm.
perception when someone tells you you're going to die or could die.
Yep.
There's a high
Yep.
chance you're going to die.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what someone tells you. Something changes in your mind or in your body, and you're like, what have I done since that period, or where have I got to in my life?
Yep.
And is
Yep.
this where I want to? Is this where I want to end my life? Is this where my book finishes? My chapter finishes? No.
Yeah.
So for me, it was when I got through that, and I was so grateful, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still grateful to this day
Mm. Mm.
that every day I live and breathe, I maximize it the most I can.
That is amazing. That is amazing journey, Dan. A great mindset. There was a book that there was an old lady who wrote, and there was a titled "What She Would Be Grateful for" when and the time that she died, or something like that. I can't remember the exact title. And when the content of the book was saying that when you die, you would think about what have you achieved and if you've been happy with what you've done in your life. So, yeah, I would think this is very similar to what you were thinking when you had that life-threatening journey.
Does. And look, the listeners that are listening, if anyone's been in a situation like that, and it doesn't even have to be life threatening, it could be an injury,
Mm-hmm.
which just changes your perception of what you're
Mm,
doing in your life. I call it like a stop moment in your life,
mm,
right? Where the
yep.
universe or God, if you're religious, or the universe, or in your life, it's a moment to stop and reflect, because
Yes.
we're rushing our life too fast,
Yep.
and we're not respecting ourselves. We're not taking a moment for ourselves to reevaluate
Mm,
and see where we're going. And it becomes a crash, a stop moment. And that's where it's
mm,
like, stop and take a moment to look at yourself. Now, I do it now. I practice it
yeah, yeah.
because I get to a point and I stop and I take a moment and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at in my life.
Mm,
Am I grateful? Yes, I'm always grateful.
mm-hmm,
And is this where I need to be? And I take that time for myself.
mm. That is great. That is great advice, Dan. That is amazing. So, um, any last messages for our listeners that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I want to talk about, I guess it's such a controversial topic,
Mm,
and because it's a blend of so many parts of what we are in society, who we are
mm,
as humanity, and what we learn in education. And
mm,
what that is, there's 3 points that I want to talk about that help
mm,
us combine to
mm,
unlock ourselves, right? And
mm,
and and I
mm,
touched on this before, Avi. You've heard me talk about this, but your superpower.
yeah.
And the 3 points are, we all have our powers, and
Mm,
everyone's got the same ones, as
mm,
in the title of it, but everyone unlocks in different ways. And
mm,
the first power that we have is our spiritual power.
mm-hmm,
Unlocking your spiritual power. Now, people think that's religion. No, that's not religion.
mm,
Spiritual power is in tapping into yourself in a spiritual manner,
mm,
feeling and listening to things outside of the body. And
mm.
and I think, Avi, you're doing a course tomorrow about breath work.
Yes, that's it.
You're
Yeah.
doing your online program. Yeah, yeah. So you're doing your online programs about breath work. And look, that's it. That's spiritual power, because when you go into your breath,
Mm.
you actually get in tune with your body, which is
Yeah, that's
really
it.
cool. And not only that, you're bringing this oxygen flow into your mind.
Mm-hmm,
You're bringing it into your bloodstream. You're
mm,
slowing down everything, that because we live life very fast, all of us, and it
absolutely.
just enhances and brings us down. So
That's
that first one is your spiritual power, tapping
yep,
into that.
yep.
Your second one is your physical power, right? And that's feeling it, right? Getting
Mm-hmm,
yourself up,
mm,
going for that walk in the morning,
yep.
you know, doing some exercise, going for a swim,
Mm-hmm,
going to play some sport of some sort. It doesn't have to
mm-hmm,
be much, but
mm,
just, doing something for yourself physically.
mm-hmm,
And look, sport is not just anything. You can go and do an activity,
yep.
all right? But if you keep doing that and
Mm,
looking in that physical power, it works.
yep.
And the last one is your mental power. And this
Okay.
is the hardest one, right?
Yep.
Because I
Mm,
personally believe we have so many restrictions within our mind that we tell
mm,
ourselves, right? And I say
yep.
it's the hardest one because for me, it's not, right? It's actually not the hardest one for me.
Mm,
But for a lot of others, I understand this. And I talk to a lot of my teammates. I talk to a lot of, colleagues and friends and family
mm,
about this, about trying to tap into your mental power to overcome your mental disruption in your life,
mm,
or your
yep.
mental roadblocks, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
bring a feel like you've got what it takes. But when
yep.
you tap into your mental power and you put all three of those together and you
Mm-hmm,
combine them, so when you
mm,
self belief in your spiritual, mental, and physical self, then you unlock your superpower. right?
Wow.
And people might laugh and think it's something crazy or magical, but for me, this is what I've got to, and this is where I am in my life. And I've unlocked those superpowers, and then
Mm-hmm.
what it comes is it shows you this one name that I believe in, making you unbreakable,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it gives you everything that you need in life to become unbreakable.
Great. I think everyone can harness this superpower and everyone can be superwoman, superman, have the superpower to be
Absolutely.
unbreakable. That's amazing. That's great framework for people to work on. Three things: your spiritual, your physical, and your mental. That's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's great, Dan. If my listeners want to find you, can they find you?
Look, Avi, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. Look, they can jump on your website and send in emails to you, Avi, and then flick them through to me. Look,
Great.
I'm still on my journey of where I'm going, and a book's coming out soon, so
Yep.
everyone has to be ready for my book, which will come out and probably the end of this year, maybe next year.
All right.
Because and that'll be my story. And look, there's going to be a lot of metaphors in my story
Okay.
about you know resilience and
Mm,
overcoming so many things.
mm,
And you know, this one story is only one story of my life. I've lived a very colorful life, Av, and I
mm.
got a story to share to this world, and I can't wait to share it and show people, how to be unbreakable.
Yep.
So, if anyone wants to reach out or have any questions, Av, please let them come through you and reach
No
out, and
problem.
I'll answer them by far for sure.
Fantastic, Dan. Thank you. And if anyone wants to contact Dan, just let me know. Shoot me an email. Well, fantastic. Thank you for your time, Dan. So
You're
thank you,
welcome.
everyone, listeners, for coming on to my podcast. I always say, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. So thank you, Dan, for coming on to my podcast and sharing your amazing journey, how you've become unbreakable and everyone can be Superman and Superwoman.
Stay unbreakable.
Thanks, Dan. Bye, listeners. Stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Prescribing Lifestyle Podcast. Before we wrap up, I have an exciting news to share. I have a new ebook called Low Carb Made Easy. It's now available. This guide is perfect for anyone looking to dive into the low carb lifestyle. Inside, you'll find the basic theory behind low carb eating, a detailed food list, practical meal plan, and a variety of delicious recipes. It's designed to make a journey to better health easier, simpler, and enjoyable. For those who prefer a hard copy, head over to my website and register your interest using the link provided. My website is www.mlcclinic.com.au. Head to online store. Remember, the information shared in this podcast, it's for educational purposes only and not proper medical advice. Always consult your medical professional before making any changes to your lifestyle and diet, or you can come and see me in Melbourne Low Carb Clinic. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on social media. Your feedback will help us improve and reach more listeners. Lastly, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your friends and family. Together, we can make a positive impact to our health and our communities. Thanks again for listening, and as always, stay healthy and happy. Until next time.